What does the food we eat have to do with our spiritual life? What does our experience in a grocery store have to do with the community that we engage in and our attitudes toward the world? This episode, we're going to go there. My guest today is Steffanie Altenbern. She's a professor, social worker, therapist, popular contributor here on George Fox Talks, and for a reason, because she's just fun to talk with. Welcome, Steffanie. And this is why I also want to ask you, what's your rhythm for cooking versus eating out? How do you do it with your family? Do you just like eat out whenever, or do you have certain days?
Do you want me to tell you how we actually do it or how I wish we did it?
Tell us how you wish for a public audience. You wish what you wish we would think about you, and then tell us what you actually do.
What do I wish? I actually just wish that I had somebody who would cook all of the meals, or somebody in my family that actually liked cooking.
So you think of that as an ideal, like you'd like to be able to say to the world, we cook at home. We cook at home.
And we do cook at home, but it's like, it's not like my husband and I aren't that couple that it's like, oh, we enjoy cooking together and trying new recipes. Like,
no, look, let's just get this clear right away. Let's just be clear about something. There's no couple that enjoys cooking together.
Okay, thank you.
Like,
thank you.
That's weird. What's wrong? What's wrong with you?
Although I did have a student that was their self-care.
Okay.
They're in their partner trying.
Maybe that's just my own deficiency in my marriage. That the idea.
Well, thank you for validating that.
No, cooking together means fighting together.
Thank you.
That's what that means.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that my husband and I go that far. It's just we don't enjoy it. We've tried the Hello Freshes. We've tried all of it.
You mean like meal kits and stuff? Like they mail it to you and then tell you how to make the thing?
And with Hello Fresh, you still have to chop everything. And to me, that's not relaxing.
When you make a meal, chopping stuff is like the thing that actually stops you from making the meal.
Yes.
You're like, I'm done.
Like I will pay more at Trader Joe's to have the chopped stuff than I would. So that's how I wish that was done. Mm-hmm. How it actually, because I don't want to eat out every meal. I don't love that. I don't love paying for that. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they put in their food. I don't love that. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to eat out once a week, and that's about what we do.
Oh, and so that matches.
That does match.
Okay.
But then the other nights, it's like literally we've done beehive meals.
What's that?
It's like crock pot meals.
Okay. And
they're actually not bad. And also since I don't enjoy cooking and actually hate cooking in all ways, I'm not a foodie, so I'm not like keen on taste. So
quote,
even if
I hate cooking in all ways.
In all ways.
In every way possible.
Like I hate microwaving. I hate all of it. So with that naturally comes that nobody in my family is really overly picky about taste. And so these beehive meals, like they've gotten much better in taste.
Okay.
But they get the job done.
What are we talking, like a full chicken or something?
Well, they put it in, like the other day it was Swedish meatballs.
Okay.
And so they don't give you the noodles. You just have to cook the noodles.
Oh, so it's a pre-made thing.
And you just put it in the crock pot.
What a great idea.
The cost is, I don't even actually think if I was some meal planner that loved doing it, I'm not even sure I could get meals this cheap.
Beehive, sponsor us.
Yeah. Yes, great.
This is free. Great. We're not even being this is not product placement, friends.
Yes.
She's just telling us live what you do. Okay, so in other words, you hate cooking in every way, but you're saying, like probably a lot of people, you found ways like kind of around it to kind of make it work. And then you do one. Do you eat out on a particular night of the week, or is it just whenever? Yeah,
it is kind of whenever. And it's not really my entire family. It's usually my husband and I getting Thai food because my kids don't like Thai food, or we'll pick up pizza instead of make pizza at home. The days are kind of on pause for my entire family going out.
Okay, one thing though I'm not hearing in what you're saying. I'm not hearing a huge role, unless I'm misinterpreting what you're telling me with this beehive thing and this and the eating out. It doesn't sound like you do this traditional grocery store thing where you're going to the grocery store and buying the groceries. What is that like for you?
And here's the weird thing about that, because that's actually one of my favorite things in life is going to the grocery store.
Is your favorite thing?
Yeah.
Why?
That's like a form of self-care. I don't know what it is.
Self-care?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I don't know.
What are you doing in the grocery store that feels like self-care?
It just seems like dreaming up the ideas, and this is where this gets way weird, dreaming up the ideas about what one could cook with that.
What you could hypothetically do.
Yes. Like, oh, I could have a whole Mexican fiesta. Look at all of these products and do all of this. But then I get it home and out of the bag and I'm like, nobody's making this Mexican fiesta.
Yeah.
But just, I think the endless possibilities of ideas that can take place in a grocery store. So how does grocery shopping get done in my house? It's either like I just get on a wild hair and make time to do it, or I have succumbed to Instacart to save time.
I want to come back to this Instacart thing and some of this, but I want to say that there's, for those literary geeks out there, there is a very famous novel. It was sometimes called the first postmodern novel. I think it was written in the 1990s by Don DeLillo. It's called White Noise. And there are all these like very funny, strange, disturbing scenes of a family in a grocery store with people philosophizing, or the narrator philosophizing about the philosophy of the grocery store. Kind of like what you were saying, the idea of like infinite possibilities and like what you could do, and it being this kind of microcosm of what it's like to be an American and be like, not only are there 90 kinds of cereal, there are like 8 different Cheerio types. They're like Cheerios and Roundios and whatever, just like all this kind of stuff. And the grocery store is in fact this kind of almost spiritual place where we have abundance, where you can come. I mean, what would be a sign of a dystopian society that has collapsed, but a grocery store with empty shelves?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we see that. There's
that's
snowstorms.
And that's absolutely real. Not only
yeah.
during times of disaster, but that's one of the sad scenes that maybe you would see, or that I think during the collapse like of the Soviet Union and the kind of Eastern Europe, you would see these scenes of great distress of grocery stores that had nothing on the shelves, or huge inflation where it cost like, millions of whatever currency just to buy bread or something like that. And so the grocery store really is a kind of central symbol for a society's affluence, but also maybe its dreams about possibility and about provision and lots of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does grocery store shopping look like in your family?
Oh, okay. Well, you give me a chance by asking that question to tell you a deep part of my own practice. And it almost feels kind of like a spiritual practice, like part of my routine of my life. And it's a deep chapter in the history of my life, which is that in 2009, my wife and I had our first child, daughter. And my wife had a job. She was working in community mental health in southern Boston, in places like Dorchester, places that were actually very hard places to work. And the model out there is not that you have an office and you sit there wearing a beautiful outfit and people come and lay on a couch and say their problems. The model there is that you go to people's homes.
I think her and I could share war stories for the record.
I bet you could. And so you would drive around, and I was a PhD student at the time. And I had a kind of a small stipend for being a PhD student, but it wasn't enough to live on. But she had a job. Didn't pay a lot, but it was a job. So when we had our first child, the story kind of wrote itself. She had to go back to work after 3 months, and I became a full-time stay-at-home dad to an infant. And I decided, and I did my whole dissertation like that. And I decided that what that meant for me was that I would essentially be at home from like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and I would do all of our meals and all of our grocery shopping.
Wow.
52 weeks a year. And because of the way that life was, I thought to myself, because of my need for efficiency and trying to get my life done and write my dissertation and have this baby and try to be married and just all this stuff, I tried to go grocery shopping once a week with a mega list with all of the ingredients and then with a menu for the whole week at the beginning of the week. I have maintained that practice for 15 years. No, not for 15 years, for 17 years. Ever since that time, I've been doing it. I've been doing all of our family's grocery shopping 52 weeks a year in one trip per week with a mega list and doing groceries. And I don't cook every meal, but we share it, and not together in the way that you were talking about, but just like separately. And we go out to eat, and we started this in COVID because it was like a takeout thing and a COVID thing. We go out to eat twice a week.
Same days?
Same days.
Same places?
Wednesday and Saturday. And not the same places, but it starts to feel like the same places. And then it's like a big battle in our family about where we're going. But like if you do it twice a week, obviously just we're normal middle class people, you have to start to like look at the prices of the things and you have to like really manage that. But we just decided that was the best flow. So when you start to talk about grocery stores, I'm into grocery stores.
You are into do you go to the same place every week?
The exact same store.
Is it a big or a small? Like a big chain?
It's a big chain.
Okay. Do you see the same people?
I do.
Do you talk to those people?
No.
Ever?
I go in with a militant attitude. Like,
well, this has been about efficiency since 2009.
And I used to take, and you have kids, right, whom you've raised from being infants. I would, in the early stages, as I said, I took the infant to the grocery store 3 months. Then it was 2 of them. I took them both.
Yeah.
And I did all the stuff. So
Yeah.
if I was doing childcare at the time, they were coming with me. So my attitude was like, it's kind of like I've talked in a different podcast episode with David Martinez about, I think there's an episode called You Pack Your Fears. Go watch that. That was a great episode that not enough people watched. Okay. I just want to point that out. But I shared in that one that, we asked each other, what's our airplane routine? Like what happens? And the person who I was talking to, David, said, oh, I talk to people. You just talk to people. I'm like, no. So my attitude like that is no. Also at the grocery store, which is, you can't get distracted. You can't lose your focus. Yeah. You can't start getting into it. But this becomes a problem for me. And I even worry about myself with the checkers in the aisles because I don't do self-checkout. I like the checkers.
Yeah.
But I want them to kind of match me, in terms of like
rhythm and flow and efficiency. Mm-hmm.
And I wonder sometimes if I'm a little too obsessed with it, but it comes out of a place of just like almost like survival, which is a crazy way to talk because obviously we're doing more than surviving,
But that's a key part of your weekend. So to spend a couple hours like that every weekend in survival, that's got to be like a 0 or a 1 out of excitement out of 10, right? But it's a necessary thing for life, but it's a practice that you have.
I'm going to say it's a 4 out of 10.
Yeah.
4 out of 10.
Okay.
Maybe 5.
I know I have a really good friend from Kenya, and she jokes that when she has to go to the grocery store, her family just drops her off and they come back because she's goes to everybody and is talking to them and what is in their car. It'd actually be your worst nightmare.
Oh,
she will look in their car and ask them what they're making, and then she'll write down the recipe. But for her, this is anytime you see people, it's a village communal mindset.
Okay.
And I think about when I lived in Idaho, I lived in a very rural town. There was a small country market, like kind of what you would envision. The owner had relationships with all the farmers, knew exactly where all the products came from. Oh. It was a beautiful place, handmade goods. And I would also take my infant at the time, but very different experience than what you're sharing. I looked forward to it. It's also, for me, I looked forward to like all the fresh produce we were going to get. That was my time to get to do something that wasn't work related.
Right.
But I would see the same people, and I got to know the owner very well, and I got to know the checkout people well, and I learned about the community events that were happening. And I met a couple of other families, and they were trying to turn it into a co-op. And it was this beautiful thing of like, how do you get involved? And do you want to help with this co-op? I'm like, sure, grocery store co-op. Know nothing about this. Great. Why not?
What is this life that you're living?
Yeah.
Okay, so did the co-op happen?
No, it didn't happen. Well, I don't know. We moved away. Okay. It's now owned by somebody else because the owners were old. But then it was turning into my dream of like, I was telling my husband, I want to buy this grocery store. I want to own a grocery store. This is such a place for community.
Yeah. Tell me more about that dream, like this sense of community that you were finding around food. Like what happens when maybe you go to a store and you do know where some of the things come from or whatever? What about that appealed to you?
I mean, I took a class in college that I learned about ingredients in food. And ever since, and I've become obsessed with what are the ingredients in our foods. Huh. And that grocery store kind of nailed it because all of their processed food, it just wasn't, it wasn't the 800 options that we'd have in a Walmart or a Fred Meyer or a Winco.
Right.
You only had a couple of options, and sure, junk food is still junk food. Processed food is still processed food to an extent, but you might not have as many of the seed oils as something like that. And I just get weirdly obsessive about some of that stuff.
I see.
Until I'm ready for Reese's, and then I just chow down on that. But I'm not perfect, but I try. And so I think that the relationships he had with the people where those products were coming from, I just was really into that.
Yeah.
And I didn't think my apples were coming from China. I knew they were coming from 4 miles down the road.
Right. I have noticed that there's probably, and I don't have a stat on hand, but I'm almost positive this is true, the rise in things like Instacart and apps and they do the grocery shopping for you and you just pick it up kind of stuff must be rising by hundreds of percentage points over the last couple of years.
I'm sure.
What's your sense as somebody who does the work you do and lives the life you live and has the ideals you have? What do you think that does to our experience with food and with other people? Do you think that this is a negative? Are people just doing an inevitable thing that will be done?
Well, I think my ideal version of like the grocery stores as a place for community, I don't know if that would, I think in some pockets of town that was always a thing. And so if I can put that aside, I would say these things have made it far more convenient.
Mm-hmm.
And I have, again, like regular Instacart user. It's actually quite ridiculous. Just, oh, no problem. I only need $10. It'll be here in a couple of hours, to where my kids growing, when they're on their own, I'm like, they know no sense of having to wait until Saturday for an item to be out. Or, oh, you want to bake tonight and do this? Great. I'll have it here in an hour.
Right.
And again, I don't know the percentages, but I'm sure I'm sure you're right. It's grown a lot. But I also think when I use Instacart, I stay on a budget, which is seems a little paradoxical, because Instacart actually has markups at most places.
Mm-hmm.
So like at Costco, for example,
in other words, you have to pay for it. Pay for the privilege of using the Instacart.
You do.
Yeah.
And then
it's not free.
No, it's not free, but it's cheap. It's like $90 a month.
Yeah.
But then each item is marked up a couple dollars. So I'm paying more for that. And then I have to pay a delivery tip.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, I'm not going into Costco and buying the random binoculars that maybe I'm going to use, but they look good and they're on promo. Or a fishing pole or something. I don't know who's ever gone into Costco with just a list. Come out with just a list.
I do the just a list. I come out with my list.
But not everybody's like you with that militant expectation. And so I think in a lot of ways, Instacart has maybe saves me money.
Well, it's a sense that maybe if you're doing things that way, you're getting things done in a particular way. You're able to live your life in a way that you're supposed to live it. And actually, this brings up a connective point that I wanted to find a way, almost like improv, to bring up during our discussion. I'm kind of launching this on you, but I've been considering some essays recently by Stanley Hauerwas. I'm holding this up to the camera in case you're watching on YouTube. Just a great collection of essays from Stanley Hauerwas, one of the most influential theologians of the contemporary world, taught at Duke Divinity School for a long time. But he was being interviewed in 1991, and they were talking about this issue of what the church should be like. What should Christians be like in community? What's efficient? What's not? How do we really get things done? How does the church judge what's true? And the interviewer says, just in the middle of the conversation, so I stand here in my position as a Christian, and someone else stands there in his or her position as a Jew. Like people disagree. How do we get anything done in society? And Stanley Hauerwas says, you may not get anything done. Why do you think that your first task as a Christian is to make society work? And the interviewer responds, because I want to eat. Stanley Hauerwas says, I quite appreciate that response. You may have to learn to cooperate with people to figure out how to do that. Yet in our society, eating is the source of our deepest injustices. For Christians, one of the great challenges is to figure out how they can eat and provide for themselves without reinforcing the powers that Christ defeated. The problem with affluent Christians in the United States today is that they want to eliminate the otherness of poverty. They say everybody can be rich. That is the vision of justice for Christians in the United States. It's an elitist vision which makes the lives of anyone who isn't poor easier because they've already won. They can sit back, wish others well, and never deal with any of the injustices of poverty or admit that they're part of the problem. And I thought that was such an amazing exchange for them to really have. I mean, just first of all, this phrase that he says, that eating and food is one of our key sources of injustice in our world. What do you make of that? I know that you think about poverty a lot, and you work with people who struggle with poverty. Where do you see this? Does that ring true to you, that eating and food is one of our top areas where you can see injustice?
Oh, absolutely. There is one of the paradigms that I see my work through is Bridges Out of Poverty by Ruby Payne. And they have what are called these hidden rules. Okay. And they say for socioeconomic status, there's hidden rules around all kinds of things. Time, money, food is one of them. Okay. So for example, the hidden rule around food when we're in poverty is there enough food?
Yeah, because you might not have enough food.
You might not have enough.
Yeah.
And so, and I would argue that's kind of bleeding into middle class now too, just with inflation. But their research, the middle class, or the hidden rule around food in the middle class is how did it taste? So like new restaurant in town.
Yep.
How was it?
I know I'm going to get enough food. In fact, I'm eating out at a restaurant and probably paying too much. So I'm going to be like, did I like it?
Did I like it? Yeah. And then when we're in wealth, it's how was it presented?
Oh.
And so they have this story about you can really tell how you can see injustice, or you could see how somebody thinks about food just based on simply how they react about food.
Right. Like you go to like these super, super elite restaurants and maybe they serve you this little tiny thing with some weird flourish, and it's just about the aesthetic of the thing itself.
It really is, because it's very, very small portion.
I see what you mean.
So then you're ruling out poverty. But the also thing that quote really takes me to is just like the injustices for how just even our grocery stores are designed. And they say that like only a couple companies own most of the products in a grocery store.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And there could be injustice with that too, because I think if you talk about local farmers being run out,
sure,
I think it's getting harder and harder for local farmers to have their products in local stores because it's hard to compete with big corporations.
Sure. I mean, what if like average people are just like, look, I'm just, they say the thing that Stanley Hauerwas is reacting. They say, I'm just trying to make my life work. Okay. I'm not sure. I love it. All the farmers, the co-ops. I wish I could be like you, but the truth is like, I'm just trying to make my life work. And that's like my perspective. Stanley Hauerwas is kind of saying, first of all, do you think as a Christian, your top goal is to make your life work out? That's challenging to me from a faith perspective in a way that's really productive. I feel like I have to really meditate on that. I have to pray about that because I do have this sense within me that almost like my top calling as a human being and a Christian is for my life to work out. And if my life works out, then that's good. That's almost like that's like cleanliness is godliness. One of these fake biblical sayings. It's like, if my life works out, that's how I knew that really I was a person of faith or something. Is like, does that stand up to the scrutiny of the Christian tradition? Does that stand up to the scrutiny of Scripture? I don't think it does, actually. The idea that if my life is working out, that means everything's okay.
I would agree with that. And I think social media and our culture now would say that all is your life working out. Well, let's look at what you're achieving.
Yeah.
But I also don't even, let me backtrack because social media will put that pressure on us to think that way. But I think internally, deep down, a lot of us have that. Is my life working out because of what I'm achieving? Yeah. We have our own drive and our own intrinsic motivation to achieve something and go. And again, that's a middle-class mindset. That's a mindset that, what am I achieving? What am I doing? How am I earning my keep?
Right.
And that's not necessarily, I don't think that's what any of that means. I think that's what we're being asked to ponder and reflect on.
Right. I wonder if your hidden rules about food, I wonder if that also applies to work or the jobs that we have. In poverty, maybe the feeling is, can I get a job? Can I even get money? And then like the middle class idea is like, am I enjoying this? Or like, does this feel fulfilling? And then maybe the elite status is like, how does this look in the grand scheme of like everyone else's thing? And now you're getting into like almost like billionaires, like this niche posturing of like who has bigger yachts and things like that. Yeah. And that seems like a categorization that we could use in lots of areas of our lives.
And that's a huge plug for our MSW program here at George Fox, because I get to teach a whole 16-week class on poverty and how to work with these folks.
And that's true no matter where you are, because it's an online program.
Yes,
so students can do it anyway. Program. You sent me, I asked you for a little bit of research on some of this, just kind of, we were just trading some ideas, and you brought up this idea of rural connectivity. In rural areas, grocery stores are critical infrastructure. Research indicates a negative relationship between obesity rates and the presence of rural grocery stores, suggesting these stores provide not just healthier food, but also a locus for social capital that correlates with better health outcomes. We could put a link to this research down below in the Journal of Social Science and Medicine. Is that kind of what you were describing in that rural setting, where there was that community and almost like this more, I don't know, just like a better, healthier way of life?
Well, and I think that in the rural towns too, when you only have access to one grocery store, you're bound to run into somebody at the grocery store, and it does become a place for community connection. I do wish, and I know the area I was connected in, we had access to really healthy food. I've also lived in other small towns where what's available is at the grocery store was not necessarily the healthiest. So it was interesting just to see positive health outcomes, because I know people in these deserted areas, we've all been there when we're traveling, you're like stuck with this one random gas station. And it's like, there's hard-boiled eggs and they look really sketchy, or some random weird pickles or something.
Here we go.
Fritos, here we go. And how unhealthy we feel when we travel because of that. And so I'd love to, that's another episode in itself. But I do just think that community piece of it, we just know that our social health in general is so good for us. And so if we feel connected to our people, whoever they are, we're just going to feel better. And I think I think a grocery store is a huge place for that. My friend Janet, that little part that little place I was involved in my past life in another state, I think those are all healthy things. Yeah. And so whatever that looks like for us, because grocery stores aren't the answer anymore. We have Instacart and everything is delivered. Whatever that looks like for us, I think finding that is really critical, because we just don't have that anymore.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me in some ways that in the Christian tradition, particularly in the Bible, for example, there is so much regulation around food. It comes up at critical points. There's actually a saying in the field of religious studies. I don't even know who it's attributed to. I've heard it attributed to various kinds of people, kind of like people attribute quotes to Mark Twain, just it's out there. But the idea is something like every major religion is definitely going to tell you what to do with your pots and your pans and with your private parts. And any religion that doesn't do that isn't even a proper religion. And we can leave the second part of that aside for a moment and just focus on the pots and the pans.
Yeah.
This idea that religions in general are going to tell you what to do with your food, presumably because it's this place of just deepest everyday need. Like we literally can't live without it. And so it's this connection point that people are going to have with each other and also with God. So you have, like in the Old Testament, what's the first thing that people do? It's the first problem involves eating a thing. Or not, right? And the snake and Adam and Eve in the garden. And food comes up again in the law, in the book of Leviticus. There are these huge categories of clean and unclean food. It's like, and some of the distinctions, people have tried to explain them and understand them, and they just seem arbitrary. It's like they defy almost any kind of sense of rationality. They might be symbolic in some way, but nobody really knows. It's like, what do you mean we shouldn't eat a pig? Like people ate pigs in that ancient context. Pigs were a great food. People eat pork today. It's totally fine. But just Israel was told, no. Like this animal in particular, no. And it comes up really all over the place. It comes up in the New Testament. Jesus is feeding people, crowds, the fish and the loaves, some of his miracles, which mirrors a miracle done in the Old Testament by Elisha, for example. And in the book of Acts, the early church struggled with some of the rules in Judaism between eating food that had blood in it or food from strangled animals, or then later in Paul's writings with the idea of food sacrificed to idols. So this idea of food and faith, it's like everywhere. And I think one result of this conversation as we sort of bring this wild food plane in for a landing here is that maybe it's worth it for Christians and just for everybody. But I speak as a person of faith myself. Maybe it's worth thinking about the relationship between the way that I treat people at a grocery store and the food that I buy and my own spiritual life and my relationship with God. Even fasting. What's fasting about? I mean, it's like usually
going without food.
You can fast from lots of things, but food, right?
Yeah.
And so it feels to me like this is a really productive area that's unexplored in a lot of our lives for thinking about our spiritual health. Yeah.
I mean, have you ever been to a church event besides a Sunday service or a weekly service and there wasn't food?
Usually food.
It's a very, as you've mentioned in so many points, it's a very biblical thing. Yeah. And it brings people together. So it's hard for me to separate food and community. Mm-hmm. And it's, I mean, even if there isn't a thing, a food there, but a group of people are there together and food shows up, it's just like, okay, here we are. We've arrived. It's now complete.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, there's something primal. I mean, it must have been the case whenever and wherever the earliest humans were, that food must have played a role in their ritual and in their community life, because it literally, for sustenance, it is life. And we're it's just biological. Like we're just designed this way. And so to connect with God over food, even to do simple family practices like praying before meals and just associating that quick piece of spirituality there with the food that's eaten, it feels like the right thing to do. But I definitely feel challenged by your utopian vision of the rural grocery store, and also by Stanley Hauerwas's words about making life work out, to think a little bit more about the efficiency and the grim nature of my food search sometimes.
But for the record too, when someday I do have my own little grocery store, there will be like meal prep kits you can purchase, because we all know that some of us families, we need that. We're not going to cook.
And if I get into the meal prep kits, I'm going to buy them from your grocery store.
Yeah. You can give me the ideas and I can hire the people to make them. And they'll be great because you've had years of planning.
Thanks so much for having this conversation with me, Steffanie.
Thank you.
Yeah.